Hello and welcome back to another Toyota video. Today's video I want to give you guys an update on my 03 Tacoma 3RZ. Last week we did a full cylinder head swap, and in the first video where I show you guys the first start, after 5-10 minutes the engine was making a really rattling noise. I'll go ahead and post up that video again just to refresh you guys. The next couple days after I did the head install, I recall that when I got the cylinder head from the seller, they didn't have the exhaust gear set properly. So I went ahead and took out the valve cover, removed the exhaust camshaft, and readjusted the sub gear and the main gear, which you have to make sure it's fully aligned because there's a tension spring in between it. And after I did that, the clicking noise or the valve noise, the tick noise that we heard earlier is now gone. So when you do this install, or if you're doing a exhaust cam removal, you have to make sure that the service bolt is bolted through the sub gear and the main gear, and it's in the factory service manual, which will explain that better. So that was the issue or the culprit to the whole valve tick, and it sounds really scary. It sounds like a diesel truck. It's weird because it sounded like it was coming from here. It sounded like it was coming from the back. At one point it sounded like it was fuel injector, but now the engine sounds perfect, and we'll go ahead and get you guys a quick startup on that. Another thing I did was I lifted the fuel neck. This fuel neck was bolted down here, and it was about right here, about almost 2 inches away from this tire. On our previous shakedown video where we took it to Ruby Lake, it was just getting too much mud on it and it was almost kind of hitting it. So I went ahead and welded a bracket. This is just a spare piece of metal that I had. I welded that, I bent it, and then I drilled a hole, and then I screwed it up, and now it's nice and sturdy. You can still open it up, and enough room to put fuel in there. It's still gonna get mud on it, but at least it won't get hit, and it's out of the way in case something gets hit on it. I went ahead and replaced the TKs Gear Oil and also the manual transmission gear oil. When I removed the TKs, less than a pint or less than a quart of gear oil came out, and it was super black and dirty. So I think this gear oil hasn't been serviced for almost, who knows, 50,000 plus. This is the drain bolt, and that up there is the fill bolt. You always want to go ahead and remove the fill bolt first, and then remove the drain bolt. I went ahead and used just cheap Walmart 80 W90 weight gear oil. This bolt right here is the fill bolt for the manual transmission, and then that bolt right there is the drain bolt. It's a 22 mil, and on the TKs they're both 22 mil. You go ahead and fill it up until it starts pouring from the fill bolt, and then close it up. I think the manual transmission and the TKs, 1 gallon, it was plenty for it. So you need at least a gallon. I also went ahead and removed the old front struts. They're leaking a little bit oil and they're completely dead. And also the main thing was that the bushings on the bottom is completely blown out. It came with these 3-inch spacers, but these are like rubber and they're decent, they're not bad. But then one of the bolts broke on me, or stripped on me. So the way these work is that they come with this little adapter, and then it screws into the 3 bolts, and then this will go on top, and then this will get bolted to the frame, the bolts on top of the strut housing. So I didn't really like the whole this system works, so I went and ordered some new ones, and they're aluminum, CNC aluminum, and they should be here this week. So it's a 3-inch lift, but the actual size for these little blocks are 1.5 inches. Usually it's always half of what the actual lift is. So if you go and buy a 2-inch lift, Usually it's a ½ inch, or usually it's a inch in diameter or thickness on the actual lift. So when you're ordering these stuff and it says 3-inch lift, you're not actually getting a 3-inch spacer, which you do get the actual lift, but this right here just changes the geometry of your A-arms. This is not the best way of doing a lift, but it's just a cheap and alternative, and this is the reason why I'm doing it. For the struts, I went with some Sinsin struts from AutoZone. They ran about almost $120 plus 20% off, shipped to my house. And these are just some really great progressive shock. Not the best, but just something replaceable for now. Within the next year or so, I'm gonna go and swap it out to some actual coilovers, and I want to go ahead and get some JBA upper control arms. So these are just temporary, and the block is just temporary for now. Right now with these installed, and I had to install this because I had to take it to a shop, but for now, with the spacers removed, the 33s are rubbing, so I'm not driving this truck for now. I didn't replace the ball joint yet, and also the CV axle and the lower ball joint, because I'm still ordering those parts. I have the uppers, but I don't have the lower or the CVs yet. So once I get those two parts and the spacers, we'll go back and tear everything open and get those swapped out. This is what the struts look like. Really nice quality, nice powder coat, and the gray looks really cool. You can see both of the CV axle, they are ripped. The boots are ripped right now. This Tacoma 3RZ I purchased last month, but the previous owner in early April, they had a shop in town, a muffler shop in town, professionally installed 2 new cat and the whole exhaust system along with the MagnaFlow. Now when I bought this truck, it had a check engine light, but it was for a misfire, which was the cylinder head issue. We went ahead and fixed that, and then we had a EGR light came on because we did the EGR delete. Went ahead and added the resistor, and then we still had one more code, which was the P0420 code. It's like a bank sensor 1 efficiency code. And the reason why, or at least I think the reason why it was like that, because on this 3RZ, you can see after the manifold, there is one O2 sensor, the first cat, and then another cat, and then the O2 sensor. So originally what the shop did was they had an O2 sensor right here, and then the cat. So I took the receipt and I went to the shop today and told them that, hey, you guys did an installation on this, and I believe you guys had the O2 sensor in the wrong section. And they took a look at it and they're like, yep, we made a mistake. We'll be more than happy to get it fixed for you for free. So early this morning I took it in, and you can see here they cutted it and welded it, and basically they just flipped it around, which is the correct way. So now on the 3RZ, just for anybody that's looking for reference, you have one O2 Cadillac converter, second cat, and then another O2 at the end of here, and then followed by your muffler of choice. So make sure you have that. I did went ahead and reset the light, and then I drove out of the muffler shop early this morning on the highway for about maybe 5 miles, and the light hasn't come on yet. So after I get my spacers and my struts replaced, or my CV replaced, and once we start driving this truck again, I'll report back to you guys to see if that check engine light is coming on or not. If it doesn't come on, then we know for sure it was because of the location of the O2 sensor. Or if it does come on, then we know that we might have a bad O2 sensor or something along that line. But for sure, though, we know that these 2 Cadillac converter are brand new from early this April, because we have the 2 certification from the muffler shop that proves that they installed these, and these are brand new Cadillac converter. For the rear axle, I went ahead and opened up the fill bolt for the gear oil, and it was full, but it was kind of dirty. I'm gonna go ahead and change the gear oil when I go and remove my differential to get it welded. And also while I'm there, I'm gonna go ahead and replace all this rear axle seals and the bearings, just for safe insurance, because like I said, this truck, when I bought it, it looked like it didn't have a really good maintenance record. So we're gonna replace maintenance stuff while we're there. So right now I'm still waiting for parts for the rear wheel bearing seals and the bearings, and then once that comes in, we'll go ahead and tear down this axle and do some maintenance on it and put some new gear oil. And then once that's done, I'll go ahead and get all this surface rust painted so we don't have all this surface rust. So that's the update for the rear. But other than that, we don't have to do too much for the rear axle. Just get the diff welded, replace the bearings, and it should be good. One thing to keep in mind is that with these Tacoma, you have the option of turning off the passenger airbags. If you guys are like me who rides solo when you off-roading, where it's just the driver and you're a solo, the solo vehicle occupant, I like to turn this off because let's say in case there is an accident, you don't want your passenger airbags to deploy when they don't need to. And also when I'm driving in the city, if it's just me in the driver's seat and passenger seat's empty, I have this turned off. So let's say we do get in a car accident, you don't have the airbags deploying for no reason, because they do cause a lot of damage, and if you do have to replace them, it causes a lot of damage. So I like to turn them off. Keep in mind, you do still have your airbags for your driver, which is what's important for you as the driver. No check engine light on so far. You guys can hear the engine sound super smooth and quiet. No clicking, clacking noise up in the valves. That's it for this video. I'll keep you guys updated on my Instagram, NuttyNu_4x4. I'll see you guys next time.